Your birthday is coming up. Someone asks, "So, what are you doing for your birthday?" And you say the one thing that apparently confuses everyone. Nothing. It's just another day. And suddenly, you're the weird one.
No, you have
Your
to
friends
listen
think
to me.
something's wrong.
This isn't going according
Your family
to plan.
says you're being difficult. Society acts like if you don't blow out candles and post a smiling photo, something must be broken inside you. But what if nothing's wrong with you? What if you're actually more evolved than people give you credit for? Because psychologists have actually studied this, and what they found says a lot more about the people who judge you than about you. This video was made for you. Whether it's sadness, maturity, or something much deeper, stay with me. Let's start with the group nobody talks about. The ones who stopped celebrating not because they chose to, but because life quietly trained them not to hope. In 1967, psychologist Martin Seligman discovered something unsettling. He called it learned helplessness. When someone experiences repeated disappointment with no control over the outcome, their brain eventually stops trying. Not because they're weak, but because they're efficient. And birthdays, if you think about it, are basically a prediction error machine. Here's the science. Your brain runs on predictions. Neuroscientists Schultz, Dayan, and Montague showed that your dopamine system doesn't just respond to rewards. It responds to the gap between what you expected and what you actually received. So imagine this. You're young. You expect the party. You expect your friends to remember. You expect to feel special, noticed, chosen for once. And when none of that happens, not once, not twice, but year after year, your brain starts doing quiet calculations in the background. It stops predicting the reward. It stops releasing the dopamine. And eventually, something inside you goes silent. You stop caring. Not because you don't want to care, but because your brain decided that hoping hurts more than forgetting. So when someone says, "It's just another day," listen carefully. That sentence wasn't born from apathy. It was built from scar tissue, layer by layer, year by year, quietly. And the fact that they can say it calmly, that's not coldness. That's armor. It's the kind of armor you don't even realize you're wearing until someone asks you why birthdays don't matter anymore, and you struggle to explain something that happened too slowly to notice. Because disappointment, when repeated often enough, doesn't explode. It erodes, like water against stone, not dramatic, not loud, just steady enough to reshape what you believe you're allowed to expect from life. But not everyone who skips their birthday is carrying scars. Some people didn't stop celebrating because life hurt them. They stopped noticing because life demanded too much of their attention. This is the second group, and on the surface, they look completely different. These are the people who genuinely forget their own birthday, not because of pain, not because of disappointment, but because their mind is running 17 tabs at once. Psychologists call this time blindness, and it's far more common than most people realize. When you're deep inside responsibility, projects, deadlines, survival, ambition, time stops feeling like a sequence of meaningful moments. It becomes a blur of obligations. Days fold into weeks. Weeks dissolve into months. And suddenly, your birthday isn't a celebration. It's just another square on a crowded calendar. These people aren't avoiding their birthday. They're not suppressing emotions. Their brain simply filed it under not urgent.
It is
Right next to the dentist appointment they've postponed 3 times, and the message they meant to reply to 2 weeks ago. It's not that they don't care about themselves. It's that they're carrying so much that one single day doesn't feel large enough to hold their attention. And here's where things get interesting. Because when people outside look at this behavior, they often misread it. They assume neglect. They assume emotional distance. But what they don't see is the quiet weight of responsibility that makes celebration feel almost impractical. Sometimes, forgetting your birthday isn't indifference. Sometimes it's overload. And then there's the third group, the one that confuses people the most. Not the wounded, not the overwhelmed, but the ones who stepped back, looked at the entire concept of birthday celebrations, and simply said, I'm good. Not because they're lonely, not because they're bitter, not because they're trying to prove a point. They just genuinely don't need it. And if that sounds like you, there's a powerful psychological framework that explains why. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan spent decades studying something called self-determination theory. And one of their most important discoveries was this: the most psychologically resilient people are not the ones surrounded by constant celebration. They're the ones whose sense of worth doesn't depend on external rituals. Not on applause, not on attention, not on a restaurant full of people singing a song you never asked them to sing. These are the people who figured out something many others are still chasing. What researcher Philip Brickman called the hedonic treadmill. That endless cycle where happiness always seems just one milestone away. The next birthday, the next achievement, the next moment where the world pauses to recognize you. And yet somehow it never lasts. You celebrate, you smile, you blow out candles. And a few days later, life returns to normal and the feeling fades faster than expected. But the people in this third group noticed something most never question. They realized that waiting for one day a year to feel special is a fragile strategy for feeling alive. So they stepped off the treadmill, not dramatically, not loudly, quietly. And here's the part that makes others uncomfortable. When you don't need a birthday to feel valued, it quietly challenges everyone who does. And that's where the story becomes more complicated than most people expect. Because not everyone who steps away from birthdays did so peacefully. Some arrived there through a path they never fully chose. Let me paint a picture. You're 8 years old. It's your birthday. You've been counting down for weeks, maybe even months. You told your friends at school. You imagined the balloons, the cake, the laughter, the moment when everyone gathers just for you. You imagined feeling seen in a way that only happens once a year. And then the day comes and it's quiet. Maybe the people you hoped would show up didn't. Maybe someone forgot. Maybe the celebration felt smaller than the version you built inside your head. And you didn't cry about it, not where anyone could see. You just quietly adjusted your expectations. The next year, you expected a little less. And the year after that, even less. Here's what most people don't realize. Researchers have found that our brains don't just remember painful dates, they relive them. It's called the anniversary effect. Your calendar moves forward, but your emotional memory lingers in place. That younger version of you, the one who waited by the window, the one who hoped, never completely disappears. But here's the twist that changes everything. Not everyone who avoids birthdays is free from needing them. Some people disconnect from celebration not because they feel whole, but because they're protecting themselves from disappointment they fear might happen again. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker studied something called contingencies of self-worth, and her research revealed something quietly heartbreaking. When people's sense of value depends on outcomes they can't fully control, they sometimes stop wanting the thing altogether. that's moed dat just to avoid the pain of it going wrong. Not from strength, from protection. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. Because there is a powerful difference between someone who doesn't need the party and someone who secretly wants it but is too afraid to hope again. So if you're listening to this right now, there's one question worth asking yourself. Not out loud, not for anyone else, just quietly inside your own mind. Is it freedom or is it fear? Only you know the answer. And here's something even more important to understand. Whether you celebrate loudly, quietly, or not at all, your worth was never meant to be measured by candles, messages, or the number of people who remembered your date. Real self-worth doesn't arrive once a year. It builds slowly. In the ordinary days, nobody applauds. Maybe someone watching this spent their last birthday alone and felt perfectly fine about it. Not empty, not broken, just calm. If that's you, you're not strange. You're part of a quiet group of people learning how to feel whole without needing permission from the calendar. So if any part of this felt uncomfortably familiar, leave a quiet comment below with just one word. Seen. Not for attention, not for validation, but as a small signal to others who might be watching in silence, wondering if they're the only one who feels this way. And if this video gave words to something you've never been able to explain before, stay with this channel. Because the next story might not just describe you. It might help you understand yourself in ways